Good evening, children. In my previous video, I had started our sixth lesson, Organisms and Populations. We discussed about many technical terms and definitions like ecology, habitat, niche, population, attributes of population. We talked about three attributes, birth and death rate, then sex ratio, and age distribution or age composition. We also studied about three kinds of populations: the expanding or growing population, stable or stationary population, and declining population. After that, we talked about age pyramids, the three types: triangular age pyramid, bell-shaped, and the urn-shaped. Then we moved further with the definition of population density or population size, two ways of expressing, that was the crude density and the ecological density. The measure of population density, I introduced a formula. Then significance of population density, we talked about 4 points or 4 factors, the basic processes that affect population density: natality or the birth rate, then mortality or the death rate, immigration, emigration, carrying capacity, where we gave a formula about population growth rate and population growth along with the factors affecting population growth. Today we will emphasize something on the numerical part. Some more things we'll introduce from the numerical side of this chapter. We will begin with population growth equation. Population growth equation, it is, suppose if we have alphabet N, capital N, I had introduced yesterday that the population density is represented by capital N. So suppose N is population density at time t, B is equal to births, I is equal to immigration, D is deaths, and E is emigration. Then population density at time t plus 1 is equal to N t plus 1, which you'll write at the bottom, or the base of N, is equal to N t plus B plus I minus D plus E. Or in other words, the sum total of births and immigration, both the things that are adding to a population, minus deaths and emigration together. Emigration, that is both the things that are reducing the population, right? So in other words, the change in population size is equal to B plus I minus D plus E. Alright, then another formula, you have to learn this, children. If you are asked the population growth equation, you will mention this and write the details of the alphabets. Further, if you are asked simple calculation or a formula on natality and mortality, the natality or the birth rate is calculated as number of births in an year per 1,000 individuals, which is mathematically natality is equal to number of births upon total number of individuals in a population into 1,000. Similarly, mortality is calculated as the number of deaths in an year per 1,000 individuals, which is equal to number of deaths upon total number of individuals in a population into 1,000. So three formula I have introduced till now: population growth equation, then the formula or the way to calculate natality or birth rate, and mortality or the death rate, right? Then we are going to start with something very important today about growth models. First question is, what is the growth model? In your course, it says, I'll show you what all things you have to numerically be ready with. Population growth, factors affecting population growth, which we did yesterday. Population growth equation, I have done today. And growth models, exponential growth and logistic growth, along with equations, graph and examples. So 3 things, children, you have to be very careful about the growth models. Number 1, what is a growth model? Types, equation and graph. So I'll write it over here before we begin. Types of growth models, then equations and graphs. 3 things the syllabus requires you to understand. The first is, what is a growth model? If the growth of a population is drawn against time, suppose something like this, the population density is drawn against time, right? We call such a graph as a population growth curve, right? Again, by definition, the growth of a population with time shows a specific pattern, and this is called as a growth model. We are much concerned about the uncontrolled growth of human population. Nowadays, this is one major problem all around the globe, children, and it is therefore very important. If we know different animal populations, they also behave the same way in nature, then is there any constraint on their growth or not? This we will learn from the growth curves today. There are 2 basic types of growth models. First is exponential growth or geometrical fashion of growth or J-shaped curve. The second is logistic growth or sigmoid growth form or S-shaped or Verhuist Pearl logistic growth, right? Now I'd like to show you why this is called J-shaped or why this is called as S-shaped. The first is the J-shaped exponential growth curve, which is like this. Because it is shaped like a J, we call it like a J curve, J-shaped curve. As you can see, it is number of organisms against time. And the second, sigmoid or S-shaped. Once again, it is shaped like S and therefore called sigmoid or S-shaped. Now in your textbook, children, both the graphs, they have been drawn together on one. In your textbook, this is the only diagram given, but you don't have to get confused. The first one here, it shows the J-shaped curve, and the second, the dotted line, if you see, is drawing the S or the sigmoid curve. But in other books, for more simplicity, I'll send you this also. J is separate or exponential growth curve, and sigmoid or logistic is S-shaped like this. But that doesn't make any difference if we draw it together on a comparative view like this. Alright, the more important thing is that you should understand. Now let us understand what is J-shaped or exponential growth curve, the first type. Now suppose the conditions in any population of space or let's say food, they are abundant or unlimited. Then each population has a power or potential to grow in a very maximum amount, or in exponential way, right? Exponential or geometric fashion. For example, conditions being favorable, the amount can be like this. Suppose it is like this, the J-shaped curve. Under optimum food and space conditions, each species has the power to double itself in an exponential fashion. 1 into 2, 2 becomes 4, then suppose like 6, 8, 16, 32, something like this, right? More or less. Once again, it is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. It is not 6 because the things are becoming doubled. So exponential means the power to become double if the conditions are favorable, right? So in this case, if we talk of the graph that is obtained, it is J-shaped, as I told you, right? And it shows 3 phases. The first is lag phase, second is log phase or exponential phase, and the third is a decline phase. We also call it as population crash. For example, this is the first phase. This is the lag phase. Why? Because the population rise is slow. Then it is exponential. You can see how drastically the rise is. It goes up, right? And it rapidly increases till the food and space is available. Then after some time, what will happen is there will be a sharp decline. Why will there be a sharp decline? Because after attaining certain amount of growth limit, a phase comes that has to attain stability for a period of time, and then abruptly it declines. Sudden decline in population is due to, let's say, availability of food that has decreased and other resources. So not every time will food be abundant or space will be abundant. There will a time come when things become restricted and population crashes. Such a population growth curve is the J-shaped. So it is simple, children. Examples where you will see this type of graph is or curve is algal blooms, populations of reindeer, some insects, and lemmings of tundra. Lemmings means they are small rodents or burrowing animals, right? So of tundra, they show this type of growth curve. So let us see the formula. When the resources are not limiting in geometric fashion, dn by dt is equal to b minus d into n. So what all these alphabets mean? D, both the d's that is in the numerator and denominator, they mean the rate of changes of population size. N means the increase or decrease in population size. This B means the birth rate per capita. D means the death rate per capita. And R, later on if we substitute, if we imagine B minus D is equal to R, suppose, then dn upon dt becomes Rn. That is this whole thing. If you assume this is small alphabet R, then the whole equation becomes dn upon dt is equal to Rn. R means intrinsic value of natural increase. So this is all about the first growth curve. Once again, when you're starting with the growth curve or growth model, you should know what it means. Two types, three things as the syllabus says: types, equations, and graphs. Types means two types you have understood, the J-shaped and the S-shaped. Then equation, in this case it is this, and examples which are here along with the graph. So you can see on the red J-shaped curve, which we have assumed as A, is dn upon dt is equal to Rn. Where did this come from? It is the same here. dn upon dt is equal to Rn. Coming to the other type is the logistic growth. Logistic means this one is more logical to understand, right? Because this you have to imagine when resources are limiting the growth. Here we said when resources are non-limiting, they are unlimited, then potential of growth is enormous, right? But yes, a time comes when there's a sharp decline here or population crash. But coming to this side, you have to imagine that growth resources in nature are finite and they become limited very soon or in a little time. This leads to competition among species members. Among the same population, things start competing each other and result in survival of the fittest. This stabilizes the population in an area and we call it as Verhulst-Pearl logistic growth. Before I come to this, I'll show you here. Growth resources being finite, they become limited sooner or later. They lead to competition among species and survival of the fittest is seen. Here there are 5 phases in the S-shaped growth curve. Here there were 3. Alright, so what are the 5 phases? I'll show you by means of the diagram only. The first is here. Lag phase, very little population increase. Then positive acceleration. Positive acceleration means population starts growing slowly. Then exponential. Exponential means there's a rapid growth due to favorable environmental conditions. Then negative acceleration phase where slow growth is seen until it reaches an equilibrium due to environment resistance. And finally, stationary phase because population stabilizes because death rate becomes equal to birth rate. So here there are 5 phases, children. I'll show you here. Lag phase, positive acceleration phase, exponential or the logarithmic phase, negative acceleration phase, and stationary phase. So that you'll have to only restrict to this, children, nothing in extra, right? Very rarely you are given numericals, but yes, for short notes you can be asked. So let us derive the formula for this. When resources are limiting the growth, dn upon dt is equal to Rn. From here we had derived dn upon dt is equal to Rn k minus n upon k, where this n means population density at time t, k means the carrying capacity, that is how much population can be carried by a given environment. We have done it in our previous video. And this small r means intrinsic rate of natural increase. This is the same r, intrinsic rate of natural increase. Only this k has come extra as the carrying capacity. So the formula or the equation for S-shaped curve is this. Examples: most of the organisms including human beings. So this is about everything what we have to do in the growth models and the growth curves till here. I am sending these pages, children. So today we are restricting to the numerical side. I have started from population growth equation. So starting from here you will write down. Then the growth models I have given in the simplest of all forms that I could have assembled for you, children, right? So 3 things only we have restricted: types, equation and graph. Here I have given the same graph for your use from the textbook. You shouldn't be confused. Red one says the J shape, this is the formula, and this green one tells you the S shaped, and this is the formula, right? Examples here for S shaped and here for J shaped, and the details I have explained on this table. So that's all for just now, children. We'll continue in another video where we'll talk about life history variations. Thank you.